The soft sunlight spilled over the grand mansion's garden, touching the roses that sway gently in the morning breeze. A little girl sat in a wheelchair near the fountain, her small hands resting quietly on her lap. Her name was Mira, the only daughter of a wealthy CEO, Mr. Arun, whose company towered over the city like a symbol of power and success. But in that moment, Mira did not feel powerful. She felt invisible. Every morning, she watched other children play outside her tall gates, running, laughing, and falling on the grass. She longed to join them, to chase the ball, to scrape her knees, to giggle in the middle of silly games. But her legs no longer obeyed her. An accident 2 years ago had left her paralyzed, and since then, her world had grown smaller and quieter. Her father, Mr. Arun, tried to give her everything money could buy: dolls, books, even private tutors. But what Mira wanted could not be purchased. She wanted a friend. Someone who wouldn't look at her with pity. Someone who would sit with her, talk with her, and simply see her as Mira, not the paralyzed daughter of a CEO. One afternoon, while the garden bloomed in its full color, Mira spotted a man walking past the mansion with a little girl. The man had tired eyes but a warm smile, and the girl skipped beside him with a braid bouncing against her back. She was about Mira's age, maybe a year younger. Her laughter carried through the iron gates like music, and Mira found herself leaning forward, wishing the sound wouldn't fade so quickly. The man Ravi, a single father, noticed the small figure sitting alone by the fountain. His daughter, Anaya, tugged his sleeve and whispered, "Papa, why is that girl sitting by herself?" Ravi slowed his steps. He saw the wheelchair, the loneliness written on the child's face, and something tugged at his heart. He knew that look all too well, the look of someone trapped in silence, waiting for a hand to reach out. For a moment, he hesitated. It was not his place. The girl lived in a mansion guarded by high walls, and he was just a mechanic who fixed cars in a small shop nearby. But Anaya's innocent eyes were fixed on the girl, and Ravi knew his daughter's heart was too pure to walk away. So he took a deep breath, guided Anaya toward the gate, and gently called out. "Hello there," he said kindly. "That's a beautiful garden you have." Mira blinked, startled. No one from outside had ever spoken to her like that before. She nodded shyly, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you." Anaya squeezed through the gate's bars just enough to wave. "Hi. My name is Anaya. What's your name?" Mira's lips curved into the smallest smile she had managed in weeks. "I'm Mira." Ravi crouched beside his daughter. He could see the way Mira's eyes softened at Anaya's friendliness. And then he said the words that would begin everything, "My daughter would love to play with you." The garden, for the first time in years, did not feel empty. Mira's heart raced. She didn't know how, she didn't know why, but at that moment, she felt as if her world had quietly opened its doors again. The morning sun rose gently over the city, painting the sky with soft shades of gold. In the biggest house at the end of the quiet lane, the garden shined with bright flowers and tall green trees. Birds sang near the fountain, and the water sparkled like crystal drops falling one after another. The place looked full of life, yet at the center of it sat a little girl who felt very far from it. Her name was Mira. She was 9 years old, and she sat in a wheelchair beside the fountain. Her small hands rested on the handles of the chair, and her eyes moved slowly, watching the petals of roses dance in the wind. She did not smile. Even though the garden was big and beautiful, to her it felt like a cage. Mira was the only daughter of Mr. Arun, one of the richest men in the city. He owned a company that people spoke about with respect, and everyone called him a great CEO. His tall building stood proudly in the center of town, and his cars lined up outside his mansion. Yet, for all his success, he could not give Mira what her heart wanted most. 2 years ago, an accident had changed her life. She could no longer walk or run. The doctors gave her a wheelchair, and with it came a silence she had never known before. Her days became slower. Her world became smaller. Children she once played with now only waved from far away, unsure of how to treat her. Teachers and tutors spoke kindly but carefully, as if every word might break her. Servants in the house respected her but kept their distance, afraid to disturb her fragile peace. But Mira did not want peace. She wanted noise, children's laughter, running feet, silly games, and someone to call her name while sharing secrets only friends could keep. More than dolls, more than books, more than all the toys her father bought her, she wanted a friend. Every day she sat in the garden, hoping to see someone who might notice her. And every day, she only saw the iron gates closing her in. That afternoon, something different happened. Mira sat by the fountain with a book on her lap. She wasn't reading, only staring at the pages as if words could somehow carry her into another world. Then she heard a sound, footsteps and light laughter. She looked up. On the other side of the tall gates, a man was walking with a little girl. The man looked simple. He wore plain clothes with sleeves rolled up, and his hair was a little messy, but his face carried a warmth that was hard to ignore. The girl walking beside him was cheerful, her braid bouncing as she skipped on the path. She laughed at something he whispered, and the sound carried into the garden like a melody Mira had almost forgotten. Her eyes followed them, wishing they would not pass too quickly. She wanted to hold on to that laughter, just a little longer. The little girl, who was about Mira's age, stopped suddenly. She tugged at her father's hand and pointed. "Papa, look. Why is that girl sitting all alone?" The man, Ravi, turned his head. His eyes fell on Mira. At first, he thought he should keep walking. After all, this was a rich man's house, and he had no business there. He worked as a mechanic, fixing cars in a small shop not far from the lane. He had learned to stay away from places like this, places where he did not belong. But then, he saw the look on the little girl's face. It was not just sadness. It was silence. A silence so deep that he felt it in his chest. He knew it because he had seen it before in himself, on nights when the world felt too heavy after his wife had passed away, leaving him to raise his daughter alone. He could not ignore it now, not when his daughter was still staring with concern. The little girl tugged again. "Papa, can I say hello?" Ravi hesitated for a moment. Then he nodded. He walked with her closer to the gate. Mira quickly looked down at her book, pretending she had not been staring, but her heart beat faster. "Hello there," Ravi said gently. His voice carried kindness, not pity, and that made Mira look up again. She blinked, surprised. Few strangers ever spoke to her. "Hello," she whispered back. "That's a very beautiful garden you have," he added, smiling. Mira glanced around at the flowers and the fountain. She had never thought of it as beautiful. To her, it was lonely. But hearing someone else call it beautiful made her see it differently, if only for a second. "Thank you," she replied softly. The little girl squeezed through the space between the iron bars and waved cheerfully. "Hi. My name is Anaya. What's your name?" Mira's lips curved into the smallest smile. "I'm Mira." Ravi crouched beside his daughter, watching the way Mira's face lit up at Anaya's friendliness. He felt something warm stir in his chest. Maybe this was right. Maybe this was what both girls needed. He looked at Mira and spoke the words that would change everything. "My daughter would love to play with you." For a moment, silence hung in the air. Then, slowly, Mira's heart filled with a hope she had almost forgotten. The garden did not feel empty anymore. For the first time in years, she felt as though the gates might finally open. The next morning, the garden looked brighter than usual. The roses opened their petals, the fountain water sparkled under the sun, and a small bird hopped across the grass as if carrying a secret. Mira sat in her wheelchair near the fountain, her eyes fixed on the gate. Her heart whispered one hope: would they come again? The memory of the day before kept replaying in her mind. Ravi's kind words, Anaya's cheerful wave, and that simple sentence, "My daughter would love to play with you." It was the first time in years someone had spoken to her as if she was not fragile, but simply a child who could be a friend. Inside the mansion, the staff moved about quietly. Servants placed fresh flowers on the dining table, a cook prepared breakfast, and tutors arranged books for the day's lessons. Mr. Arun, as usual, had left early for his office. He loved his daughter deeply, but his way of showing love was through comfort and care provided by others. He thought toys, tutors, and luxuries would keep her happy. What he did not see was the loneliness that lingered in her eyes. The sound of footsteps outside broke her thoughts. She leaned forward in her chair, and her heart skipped. Through the iron bars of the gate, she saw the familiar figures: Ravi and his daughter, Anaya. Anaya spotted Mira first. Her face lit up. She tugged her father's hand and ran toward the gate. "Papa, she's here." Mira felt her cheeks warm with excitement. Her small hand lifted in a shy wave. Ravi smiled politely. "Good morning, Mira," he said. "Good morning," she replied softly, her voice carrying both shyness and happiness. Anaya pressed her face against the gate. "Can I come in?" she asked eagerly. For a moment, Mira hesitated. No child had ever asked to come into her world before. She turned her eyes toward the house, afraid someone might say no. But the thought of saying yes felt too precious to lose. She nodded quickly. Ravi looked uncertain. He was not sure if the mansion staff would allow it. But before he could ask, the gardener, who had been trimming hedges nearby, noticed. The gardener had served the family for many years, and though he was quiet, he cared for Mira deeply. Seeing her smile after so long softened his heart. "It's fine," he said gently. "The little girl can come inside." With permission given, Anaya slipped through the half-open gate, her braid swinging as she hurried across the garden. She stopped right in front of Mira, her eyes bright with excitement. "Your garden is so big," she said, spinning around to take it all in. "And this fountain is so pretty." Mira looked at her, a smile tugging at her lips. "I sit here every day," she admitted. "Then I'll sit here with you," Anaya declared, plopping down on the grass. Her simple words felt like sunlight breaking into a dark room. Ravi remained near the gate, watching carefully. He knew he had to be respectful. This was not his home, and he was just a visitor. But when he saw the joy on Mira's face, he knew bringing Anaya here had been the right choice. The two girls began talking. At first, Mira spoke only in short answers, but Anaya's chatter slowly pulled her in. Anaya talked about her school, about how she loved to draw, and how her father cooked noodles every Friday because that was the only dish he never burned. Mira laughed, a sound that startled even herself. It had been so long since laughter had escaped her lips. "You laugh so nicely," Anaya said, grinning. "We should laugh together more often." Mira's eyes softened. "I'd like that." As the morning went on, the girls played simple games. Since Mira could not run, Anaya suggested games that did not need moving, like guessing objects by touch, or telling stories one after another. Anaya even made a crown out of leaves and placed it gently on Mira's head. "You're the queen of this garden," she announced proudly. For the first time, Mira did not feel trapped in her wheelchair. She felt like a queen in her little kingdom, and she had finally found a friend who saw her as more than her chair. From the gate, Ravi's eyes grew moist. He remembered his late wife, who used to say, "Children need friends, not gifts." Watching his daughter with Mira reminded him how true those words were. Time passed quickly. When the sun climbed higher, Ravi told Anaya it was time to leave. "Already?" Anaya pouted. "Can't we stay a little longer?" "We'll come again," he promised. Anaya turned to Mira. "Will you be here tomorrow?" Mira nodded eagerly. "Yes. I'll wait for you." As they left, Mira sat quietly, her heart full in a way it hadn't been for years. She knew tomorrow would not be like the days before. For the first time since the accident, she had something to look forward to, not a toy, not a tutor, but a friend. In his office that evening, Mr. Arun received a call from the gardener. "Sir," the gardener said, "your daughter smiled today." "A real smile?" Mr. Arun froze. A smile? For months he had only seen her quiet, distant eyes. The words stirred something in him, though he did not fully understand. He told himself he would ask Mira later. But as always, work claimed his time. Meanwhile, in her room, Mira looked out the window toward the garden, her heart whispering a promise: tomorrow, Anaya will come again. The lonely garden had opened its door, and with it, a new story had just begun. The morning sky stretched wide with soft clouds, and sunlight filtered gently through the trees. In the grand garden of the mansion, Mira waited eagerly. She wore a pale blue dress her caretaker had chosen for her, and her hair was neatly tied with a ribbon. But what shone brightest on her face was not the dress or the ribbon, it was her smile. Her wheelchair stood near the fountain, where the sound of flowing water calmed her restless heart. Every few seconds, her eyes darted toward the gate, searching, hoping. Finally, she saw them. Ravi and Anaya appeared at the end of the lane, walking hand in hand. Anaya noticed her first and waved both arms in excitement. "Mira! We're here," she shouted. Mira's heart leaped with joy. She raised her hand and waved back, her face glowing. The gardener, who had already seen them, opened the gate with a knowing smile. Anaya dashed inside, holding a small paper bag. "Papa and I brought something for you," she said breathlessly, holding out the bag. Curious, Mira peeked inside. It was filled with crayons and a small sketchbook. "I like drawing," Anaya explained. "I thought maybe you'd like it too. We can draw together." Mira touched the crayons gently. Her father had bought her many expensive things, paints, toys, books, but nothing had felt as warm as this small gift. It wasn't about the cost. It was about the thought. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes shining. The two girls settled under the shade of a tall tree. Anaya sat cross-legged on the grass, while Mira held the sketchbook on her lap. Together, they began drawing. Anaya's lines were playful and bold, while Mira's strokes were careful and neat. Their pictures were simple: flowers, butterflies, and houses, but to them, Each picture was a shared secret, a piece of their new bond. Ravi watched from nearby, his hands resting on his knees. His daughter's laughter filled the air, and Mira's soft giggles followed. He had not heard such sound in this garden before. It was as if the place itself had woken up from a long sleep. Look at this. Anaya held up her drawing of a butterfly. Mira smiled. It's pretty. Mine is a flower. Maybe the butterfly can sit on my flower. Anaya nodded quickly. Yes. Let's put them together. In that moment, the girls discovered the joy of sharing something small yet meaningful. As the days passed, this routine became their treasure. Every morning, Mira waited near the fountain, and every morning, Anaya came running in with her father. They played games, told stories, and filled the garden with chatter. Anaya taught Mira songs she learned at school, and Mira read short tales from her storybooks to Anaya. One afternoon, while they were making leaf crowns, Anaya looked at Mira seriously. "Do you know what I like most about you?" she asked. Mira tilted her head. "What?" "You listen. Other children talk a lot, but they don't listen. You do." The words touched Mira's heart deeply. For so long, she had felt unseen. Now, someone saw her, not her chair, not her silence, but her heart. Meanwhile, inside the mansion, whispers began to spread among the staff. They noticed Mira's laughter, her brighter eyes, and the way she asked less for her toys and more for time in the garden. Even the cook remarked, "The little madam eats better now. Maybe she is happier." The news eventually reached Mr. Arun. One evening, when he returned from his office, tired and lost in thoughts of meetings, the gardener stopped him. "Sir, your daughter smiles more these days," he said quietly. Arun paused. "Smiles?" "Yes, sir. A girl visits her often. They laugh together. It is good for her." Arun frowned slightly. He was not used to strangers entering his home. "Who is this girl?" "She is the daughter of a man named Ravi," the gardener explained. "A simple man, but kind. He brings his daughter to see Mira." Arun said nothing at first. He walked into the house, but his mind was restless. That night, when he entered Mira's room, he found her holding a drawing. "What is this, Mira?" he asked gently. She looked up, her eyes shining. "It's me and my friend, Papa. Her name is Anaya." "Friend?" Arun repeated, surprised. "Yes. She comes to play with me every day. She's very nice." Mira's smile was wide and genuine, brighter than he had seen in years. For a moment, Arun felt something stir in his chest. He had given her so many things, yet this small friendship had brought her a joy he could not provide. "Do you like spending time with her?" he asked softly. "I love it," Mira replied without hesitation. "She makes me feel normal." Arun's throat tightened. Those words cut through the silence he had lived in. He had worked endlessly to protect her comfort, but he had forgotten her heart. That night, while Mira slept peacefully, Arun stood by her window, watching the quiet garden. He whispered to himself, "Maybe, this is what she needed all along." The next morning, as Mira waited by the fountain, she saw not only Anaya and Ravi at the gate but also her father, standing a few steps behind them. "Papa?" she asked in surprise. Arun smiled faintly. "I thought I should meet your friend too." And just like that, the bond that began between two children slowly started touching the lives around them. The morning sun shone brightly, and the garden was filled with the sound of birds. Mira sat near the fountain, excitement rising in her chest. She had become used to waiting for Anaya every day, but today felt different. Her father had promised to meet her friend, and she could hardly wait. Soon, she saw them Ravi walking with Anaya, just like always. But this time, Mr. Arun stood near the gate too, his tall figure straight, his sharp eyes studying the pair as they approached. "Papa, come." Mira called out, her voice brighter than usual. Arun stepped forward slowly. For years, his world had been filled with business meetings, numbers, and contracts. Standing here, about to meet a simple man and his daughter, was not something he had expected. But seeing Mira's glowing face gave him courage. The gardener opened the gate. Anaya ran inside, waving her arms. "Mira," she called happily. Then, noticing the man beside her friend, she stopped. Her eyes widened. "Is this your papa?" Mira nodded proudly. "Yes. This is my papa." Arun gave a small smile. "Hello, Anaya." His voice, usually firm in the office, softened. "Hello, uncle," Anaya replied politely, then skipped to Mira's side, holding her hand. Ravi walked forward and greeted Arun with respect. "Good morning, sir," he said. His clothes were plain, his hands rough from years of work, but his eyes were calm and steady. Arun studied him for a moment. "You must be Anaya's father." "Yes, sir. My name is Ravi." There was a pause. Both men came from different worlds. One lived in a mansion, the other in a small rented home. One managed hundreds of employees, the other repaired cars with his own hands. Yet, standing in the same garden, they were simply two fathers who loved their daughters. Mira, sensing the silence, spoke quickly. "Papa, Anaya is my best friend. She makes me happy." Arun looked at her. Her eyes shone with sincerity, her smile wide. How could he ignore that? He turned back to Ravi. "Thank you, for bringing your daughter here." Ravi shook his head. "No need to thank me, sir. Children don't think about rich or poor. They only see kindness. My daughter enjoys playing with Mira. That is enough for me." The words touched Arun more than he expected. He had spent years separating himself from others, building walls around his family. Yet this simple man had broken through those walls with nothing but honesty. The girls, meanwhile, had already started playing. They spread the sketchbook on the grass and began drawing. Their laughter floated in the air like music. Arun and Ravi sat under the tree nearby, watching. "Your daughter is strong," Ravi said quietly. Arun's chest tightened. "She is, but she has suffered a lot. After the accident, she stopped smiling. I gave her everything I could, but nothing helped." His voice lowered. "Then I saw her with your daughter. She was smiling again. Truly smiling." Ravi nodded slowly. "Sometimes, children don't need things. They just need a friend." Arun turned to him, curious. "And you? You are raising your daughter alone?" "Yes," Ravi said simply. "My wife passed away some years ago. Since then, it has been just me and Anaya. Life is not easy, but she gives me strength." Arun studied him with quiet respect. He had money, servants, and comfort, yet he often felt helpless when it came to Mira's happiness. Here sat a man with little wealth, yet his daughter's laughter was proof of the love and care he gave her. The silence between them was not heavy. It was the silence of understanding. As the girls continued their fun, Anaya suddenly announced, "Uncle Arun, will you play with us too?" Arun blinked in surprise. "Me?" "Yes." Anaya insisted. "We're making crowns again. You can be the king." Mira giggled. "Yes, Papa, you'll be the king." Arun, who had never imagined sitting on the grass with children, found himself unable to refuse. The sparkle in his daughter's eyes left him no choice. He lowered himself awkwardly onto the grass, and the girls placed a crown of leaves on his head. "You look funny," Mira said, laughing openly. Arun's lips curved into a smile. For years, his daughter had looked so quiet and sad. Now she was laughing freely, and he was part of it. He realized he had missed these simple joys. Ravi watched silently, his eyes warm. He knew this moment meant more to Mira than any gift. Later, when Ravi and Anaya prepared to leave, Arun surprised himself by saying, "You're welcome to bring your daughter again. The garden is open for her." Ravi gave a respectful nod. "Thank you, sir." Mira hugged Anaya before she left. "Come tomorrow," she whispered. "Of course," Anaya replied, squeezing her hand. After they were gone, Arun remained in the garden with his daughter. The leaf crown still sat crookedly on his head, and Mira giggled every time she looked at him. In that simple laughter, Arun understood something important. His daughter did not need the world's riches. She needed love, friendship, and moments like these. As the sun set behind the mansion, Arun whispered to himself, "Maybe this is how I can bring her happiness back." The garden, once silent, had now become the place where two worlds met, where wealth and simplicity, sorrow and joy, found common ground through the hearts of two little girls. The days passed, and the mansion felt different. Where once silence ruled, now laughter echoed in the garden every morning. The staff whispered about the change. They noticed how Mira's face glowed, how her laughter rang like bells, and how her wheelchair no longer seemed like a prison but simply a chair where a little girl enjoyed her friend's company. Every morning, Anaya came running through the gate with Ravi walking behind. Sometimes she carried a new drawing, sometimes a small toy, and sometimes just her endless chatter. Whatever she brought, she also carried with her the joy Mira had longed for. One afternoon, while the girls played near the fountain, Arun called Ravi to sit with him under the shade of the tall tree. "You know," Arun began, his voice lower than usual, "for years, I thought money could solve everything. I gave Mira the best doctors, the best tutors, and the finest things I could buy. Yet she was still lonely." Ravi looked at him calmly. "Children need love more than luxury, sir. A friend can sometimes heal what nothing else can." Arun nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "You're right. I see it now. My daughter smiles because of yours. I'm grateful." Ravi gave a small smile. "You don't need to thank me. Anaya is happy too. She lost her mother when she was very young. She doesn't remember much, but sometimes I worry she feels the emptiness. Playing with Mira gives her something she needed too." For a moment, the two fathers sat quietly. They came from different lives, yet both carried the same weight of worry for their daughters. It was a bond neither of them had expected. Meanwhile, the girls had started a new game. Anaya had taken Mira's crayons and was sketching something quickly on the paper. "Look, Mira. It's you and me," she said proudly, holding it up. Mira leaned forward. The drawing showed two girls holding hands under a big tree, smiling widely. It was simple, but to Mira, it was more beautiful than any painting she had seen in her father's mansion. "It's perfect," Mira whispered. Can I keep it? Anaya nodded quickly. Yes, but I'll make more for you tomorrow. Mira hugged the paper to her chest as though it were treasure. And in truth, it was. That evening, after Ravi and Anaya left, Arun entered his daughter's room. He found her still holding the drawing close to her heart. Papa, she said softly, Anaya made this for me. Arun sat beside her. He studied the paper, the simple lines, the smiling faces. Something about it touched him deeply. It's beautiful, he admitted. Papa, Mira whispered again, I feel happy when she is here. Before, I felt like the world was too far away. But now it feels closer. Arun swallowed the lump in his throat. For the first time, he realized how much his daughter had been missing, not toys, not comfort, but connection. The next morning, Arun did something unusual. Instead of leaving early for his office, he stayed home to watch his daughter and her friend play. He sat under the tree while Ravi stood nearby, and together they watched the girls laugh. Sir, Ravi said after some time, do you mind if Anaya teaches Mira some of the games she plays at school? They are simple, and she won't need to move around much. Arun glanced at his daughter, who was already nodding eagerly. Of course, he said softly. If it makes her happy. So Anaya began teaching Mira clapping games, riddles, and even short songs. At first, Mira's hands moved slowly, but Anaya clapped along with her, guiding her gently. Soon, their rhythm matched, and laughter burst out when they made a mistake. See, Uncle Arun. Anaya said proudly. She can do it. Arun chuckled, his heart warming. Yes, she can. In the following days, the mansion changed even more. The cook began making small snacks for both girls to share. The gardeners started leaving extra flowers near the fountain so they could decorate their crowns. Even the maids, who once tiptoed around Mira's silence, now smiled when they heard her laughter. One evening, as Ravi prepared to leave, Arun stopped him. Would you join us for dinner sometime? He asked hesitantly. Ravi was surprised. Dinner? In the mansion? Yes, Arun said firmly. You and your daughter have given Mira something I could not. I'd like to share a meal with you, as friends. Ravi hesitated. He was a simple man, and the idea of sitting at the CEO's grand table felt strange. But when he looked at his daughter's hopeful face, he nodded. If you're sure, sir. Mira clapped her hands with joy. Yes, Papa. Please invite them. Arun smiled at her happiness. Then it's decided. That night, after the house grew quiet, Arun stood by the window of his study. He thought about the years he had spent focusing only on business, believing success meant security for his daughter. But now he realized success meant little without love, without joy. In the silence of the night, he whispered, maybe this is the beginning of healing for all of us. The next morning, as the sun rose over the garden, Mira was already waiting by the fountain. Not only was she waiting for her best friend, she was also waiting for a future that suddenly looked brighter than she ever imagined. The mansion's dining hall was quiet that evening. A long polished table stretched across the room, with golden lamps glowing softly above it. Usually, Mr. Arun ate his meals here alone, his staff serving silently before disappearing again. But tonight was different. Tonight, two guests were coming, not business partners, not wealthy families, but a mechanic named Ravi and his daughter Anaya. Mira could hardly sit still in her chair. She wore a pale pink dress and a necklace her caretaker had given her. Her excitement showed in the way her eyes sparkled. "Papa," she whispered, "they're coming, right? You invited them." Arun smiled gently at her. "Yes, they'll be here soon." The doorbell rang, and Mira's heart leapt. The butler opened the door to reveal Ravi and Anaya. Ravi wore a clean white shirt and dark trousers, clothes simple but neat. His hair was combed carefully, though a little out of place as if he wasn't used to such preparations. Anaya wore a yellow frock with small flowers printed on it, her braid tied with a ribbon. Mira clapped her hands in delight. "You came." Anaya ran forward and hugged her. "Of course I did. Papa said we mustn't be late." Arun stepped forward, greeting them with a polite smile. "Welcome. Please, come in." Ravi nodded respectfully. "Thank you for inviting us, sir." "Not sir," Arun corrected gently. "Tonight, we are just two families sharing a meal." The dining table, usually empty and cold, suddenly looked warmer. The cook had prepared a variety of dishes: rice, curry, vegetables, and soft bread. But instead of sitting far apart, they all gathered close together at one end of the long table. At first, Ravi felt awkward. He was not used to chandeliers above his head or silver dishes placed before him. But when he saw Mira's joy and heard Anaya's laughter, his discomfort faded. "Papa," Anaya whispered, "this is the biggest table I've ever seen." Mira giggled. "It always felt too big for me alone. But tonight it feels just right." Arun's heart tightened at her words. He realized how lonely she must have felt, dining in silence night after night. As the meal began, conversation slowly flowed. "Do you like school, Anaya?" Arun asked kindly. "Yes, uncle," she replied. "But I like coming here more. Mira tells the best stories." Mira blushed. "I just read them from books." "No," Anaya shook her head. "You make them sound special." The two girls exchanged smiles, and their laughter filled the air again. Ravi watched quietly, his eyes soft. Then Arun turned to him. "Ravi, tell me, how long have you worked as a mechanic?" "Many years," Ravi answered. "I started young. It is not easy, but it is honest work. I fix what is broken, and people trust me for that." Arun studied him thoughtfully. He admired the pride Ravi held in his simple words. There was no shame, no bitterness, only dignity. "And your daughter," Arun continued, "you raise her alone?" "Yes," Ravi said, his voice steady though his eyes grew distant. "Her mother passed away when Anaya was very small. Since then, it has been just the two of us. Sometimes I worry I cannot give her enough. But then I see her smile, and I know love is stronger than wealth." Arun fell silent for a moment. Those words struck deep. He thought of the countless hours he had buried himself in work, thinking money was enough for Mira. Yet here sat a man with little money, whose daughter's laughter was full of light. After dinner, the group moved to the garden. The fountain sparkled under the moonlight, and the night air was cool. The girls sat together, still talking, while the two fathers walked slowly nearby. "Ravi," Arun said quietly, "I want to thank you. You and your daughter, you've given my child something I could not." Ravi shook his head. "No thanks needed. Children find each other naturally. We only guide them." Arun looked at him with respect. "Still, I would like us to be friends. Not as CEO and mechanic, but as fathers." Ravi was surprised, but he saw sincerity in Arun's eyes. He nodded slowly. "Friends, Then, the two men shook hands under the soft glow of the garden lamps, sealing a bond neither of them had expected. Meanwhile, the girls were busy planning. "Tomorrow, we'll draw again," Anaya said. "And we'll make another crown." Mira's eyes sparkled. "And maybe we can plant a flower together. It will be our flower." "Yes." Anaya agreed eagerly. "It will grow with us." The night grew late, and soon it was time for Ravi and Anaya to leave. As they stood at the gate, Mira reached out her hand. "Come tomorrow," she asked softly. "Always," Anaya promised, squeezing her hand before stepping away. After they left, Mira turned to her father, her eyes glowing. "Papa, wasn't tonight the best?" Arun smiled, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Yes, my dear. Tonight was the best." As he looked at his daughter's shining face, Arun realized something important. Happiness did not come from the size of his mansion or the height of his company's tower. It came from small things: friendship, laughter, and shared moments like this. That night, as Mira fell asleep with a smile, the mansion no longer felt cold. It felt alive, as though love had finally returned to its walls. The sun rose gently over the mansion, casting long shadows across the garden. Mira sat by the fountain, her hands resting lightly on her wheelchair's handles. But her heart was full, and her eyes sparkled with anticipation. Today felt special, she could feel it. "Mira. We're here." Anaya's voice rang before Ravi even reached the gate. The little girl ran forward, braid bouncing, carrying a small basket. Mira smiled widely. "Good morning, Anaya. What do you have there?" Anaya giggled and opened the basket, revealing seeds for flowers of all colors: red, yellow, pink, and purple. "Papa and I thought we could plant a garden together," she said proudly. Mira's heart lifted. She had always loved the flowers in her garden, but now, she would grow them herself alongside her best friend. Ravi followed, smiling at the sight of the two girls. "This is a wonderful idea," he said. "It will be a garden you can share every day." Arun, who had decided to take a day off from work, stepped into the garden quietly. He watched Mira's excitement and felt warmth spread in his chest. Seeing his daughter smile, laugh, and plan with another child without worry, without hesitation, was a feeling he had never experienced in all his years of business success. "Papa!" Mira called, waving. Arun walked toward them, crouching to meet her eyes. "I see you have a project today." "Yes." Mira exclaimed. "We're planting flowers. Will you help us, Papa?" Arun smiled and nodded. "Of course." The girls cheered. Together, they dug small holes in the soil, placing seeds carefully and covering them gently with earth. Anaya hummed a song, and Mira joined in, her voice soft at first, then stronger as the melody grew. Ravi handed them watering cans, and the girls took turns sprinkling the soil. The water sparkled in the sunlight, glinting like tiny diamonds. "Look, Papa!" Mira shouted. "Our garden is growing already." Arun laughed softly. "Yes, it is. And you both will take care of it every day." Ravi smiled, watching his daughter's happiness mirrored in Mira's face. "I think this will be the best garden in the city," he said quietly. As the morning passed, the four of them worked together. Arun realized how much he had missed simple joys: the laughter of a child, the soft touch of soil, the happiness of shared effort. He understood, more clearly than ever, that his daughter's heart needed more than wealth or comfort. She needed love, friendship, and experiences that filled her days with light. By afternoon, the garden was alive with tiny new plants, and the girls sat together on the grass, tired but content. Mira held Anaya's hand. "I'm glad you came into my life," she whispered. Anaya squeezed her hand back. "Me too. You're my best friend." Ravi looked at Arun. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For letting her come here, for trusting me, for being part of this." Arun nodded, his eyes misty. "No, thank you. You've given Mira something I could never buy. Happiness. True happiness." For a moment, the two fathers simply stood in silence, watching their daughters. Their hearts understood what words could not express. Two very different worlds had met, not because of wealth or status, but because of the innocence and honesty of children. As evening approached, the girls lay on the grass, looking at the sky. Clouds drifted lazily, and the golden light of sunset bathed the garden. Mira rested her head on Anaya's shoulder, feeling safe and loved. "Papa," she said softly, "I think this is the happiest day of my life." Arun's throat tightened. "Mine too, Mira," he whispered. Ravi crouched beside them. "And it's only the beginning," he said with a smile. The girls smiled at each other, holding hands. They did not need words to understand the bond they had formed, the kind of bond that could last forever. That night, as Mira slept peacefully in her room, her father watched from the doorway. The mansion, once silent and lonely, now felt warm and full of life. The laughter, the stories, the tiny moments of joy, they had all come together to fill the emptiness that had lingered for too long. Arun realized something important. Life was not about wealth, power, or success. It was about moments like this, shared laughter, friendship, and love that reached beyond walls, beyond fear, and beyond sorrow. In the days that followed, the visits continued. Mira and Anaya's friendship grew stronger, their laughter echoing in the garden. The two fathers became friends too, meeting often and sharing stories, small meals, and even dreams for the future. Mira's life had changed completely. She was no longer alone. She had a friend who truly understood her, a father who now saw her heart, and a world that suddenly felt bigger, brighter, and full of possibilities. And in that mansion, once silent and still, a new life had begun, a life of love, joy, and hope. A life where every sunrise brought laughter, every flower a memory, and every day a chance for happiness. The garden, once lonely, had become a place of light. And so had Mira's heart.